So the purpose of today's webinar is to, first of all, listen to you from your recent book, Geography, Technology, and Institutions, particularly what lessons we could learn from the past 7 civilizations humankind has over the last 70 years. And you wrote a long history of human civilization for the last 70 years.
70,000 years.
Geography, technology, and institutions interact and create a new civilization. And what efforts do humanity need to make now to prepare better for the coming new civilization in the digital age? So those are the 3 points we want to hear from you at the beginning. So
wonderful.
Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very honored to be together with all of you. And I am grateful for the chance to discuss these important topics. No doubt Korea's role in shaping the future will be extremely important. And I think the time we are in the world right now is very complex and requires this kind of discussion and analysis. I wrote a history of globalization to try to better understand our situation today. And the argument of the book, The Ages of Globalization, is that humanity has always been global, interconnected, with an interplay of 3 major factors: the physical geography, the institutions of government and culture, and the technologies that we have. And I try to understand in this book the different phases of globalization in the 70,000 years of history of our species since the Great Migration out of Africa 70,000 years ago, and to point out the roles of these 3 major fundamental factors. Now, the 7 ages, very briefly, are the Paleolithic age before civilization itself, the age of agriculture, the age of the domestication of the horse, because that was the most important breakthrough in transport and scale in many thousands of years, the rise of the classical empires around 2,000 years ago, then the rise of the oceanic empires in the 1500s, after the Europeans began the process of trans-ocean imperialism. Then the age of industry, especially in the 19th century, led by the invention of the steam engine, and then the age we are in today, the digital economy. And I think that it is right to say that in every transformation, the technological discoveries have been the greatest of the forcing events. So agriculture discovery changed, of course, humanity from hunter-gatherers and nomadic to settled civilization. The discovery of domestication of the horse created the first empires. The invention of the alphabet, which is a 9th century BC invention in the West, in Phoenicia, in the Mediterranean, created the basis for first the Greek and then the Roman Empire. Of course, transoceanic navigation and the gunpowder age, both inventions coming from China, but taken by Europe in the 16th century, created global scale empire for the first time. I have no doubt that the invention of the steam engine in the late 18th century was the most important single invention for the rise of the industrial age. And now we have a cluster of digital technologies. Fortunately, Korea is in a leadership position on many of them that are, again, transforming civilization. Now, with each of these technological changes has come major changes in how we live, the nature of human settlements, the rise of cities, of course, the scale of our governance, including the rise of empires, and the intensity of our interdependence. And each of these changes of technology created great imbalances and disruptions in society, and often at the boundaries of each of these new technological ages was a great deal of war and violence, usually resulting from the unequal power of nations resulting from these technological advances. There's no doubt that Britain's advantage in having coal and having been the site of the invention of the steam engine, and really the first application of steam power for the first 50 years, put Britain in a unique position to dominate much of world politics in the 19th century, and led to the ability of Europe to essentially colonize a great deal of Asia and almost all of Africa in the 19th century. And so each of these technological ages has been very tumultuous. Now, I believe that we are in a new phase of global development in the past 40 years, but especially in the early years of the 21st century. On the one hand, it's characterized by very rapid technological developments, largely around the digital revolutions of computation and digital connectivity, which of course are changing how every part of our economy operates, changing our politics, changing our cultures, changing our global interactions. It's also the case, of course, that our geopolitics are changing dramatically. And with the technological changes being an important part of that, but also the history of the 20th century, finally, because of 2 world wars leading to the demise of European imperialism, really changing the structure of politics and geopolitics, with the independence of countries like Korea itself, with the rise of the People's Republic of China, with the independence of Africa, African countries, and so forth. We also entered a new geopolitical age, very different from the European imperial age. And the underlying gist of both the technology and the changing geopolitics, in my opinion, is the end of the period of American dominance in global geopolitics and the rise of a truly multipolar world with the very strong and multiple centers of power, certainly the US, the European Union, Russia, China, India, and of course, the complex situation in Northeast Asia in general, with Korea, Japan, and China in a very complicated set of relations. But my view is that this is at the end of a period in which arguably the United States was the world's leading power, albeit a power that was in competition with the Soviet Union, but a much more dominant economic and technological power. And I think that that era of global politics is coming to an end. So I try to understand from these past episodes of globalization what this means for our life on the planet today and in the future. And I arrive at a few basic points for this digital age. First, all of our societies will be profoundly transformed by the continued rapid speed of technology. And on the whole, this technological transformation is very promising because digital technologies, especially computation and artificial intelligence, have the potential for a massive benefit of productivity in our societies and a massive ability to have machines do a lot of the work and the drudgery of work that were the human work for ages. So I think the promise of the technological revolution is very strong and potentially very positive. Of course, every technological revolution also has its negative sides, and the direct negative sides of the digital revolution are cyber warfare, surveillance, loss of privacy, psychological destabilization, fake news, drone autonomous weaponry. So many complicated aspects of this major technological advance. I think the technological advance, by the way, continues at a rapid rate, not at a diminishing rate. So I would expect to see further rapid advances coming in all aspects of computation and digitization of society. Second feature clearly is that because of the scale of human activity and the adverse environmental consequences of the fossil fuel age, we have reached, as everybody knows, a truly threatening point on the planet from multiple environmental crises, which will also define our politics and our priorities for several decades. So we need the energy transformation to zero carbon energy. We need to protect ecosystems and biodiversity. We need to protect the oceans. We need to stop massive pollution of multiple kinds. And of course, we know from COVID that we, and I think everybody understands, we're in an era of new emerging diseases, of which there have been many in the past 20 years, and there will be more to come. So we have COVID, but we also had SARS, we had MERS, we had Nipah virus, we had H1N1, and these emerging diseases are also part of the globalization phenomenon of our time. On geopolitics, we are in a very difficult period because of the relative waning of power of the United States, the rise of power of China, and all of the instability resulting from that. But of course, also geopolitics in our age is defined by the nuclear threat. And of course, Korea lives with this every day now. So I think the geopolitical situation is frightening and unstable. And when I add all of these aspects together, the technological disruptions, the environmental disruptions, and the geopolitical change, I think that we are in an era of really high risk and instability, despite also being in an era of unprecedented scientific and technological potential. And so our job is to find a safe path out of this complicated situation. And this, I think, is not easy because our political processes are not well designed for the kinds of challenges we face. And geopolitics is unstable. And our cultural understanding is not good, at least in my country. And I would say in many countries, we have cultural instability as well, because the changes that are occurring are also causing great inequalities and great stresses within society itself. Also, what I've said about the United States being in a relative decline is not accepted, for example, in the United States politics, because the American political leaders believe the United States is still the world leader. And so they are aiming to, I believe, actively try to push back against China. I regard this as dangerous and misguided and potentially leading to conflict. For example, over Taiwan, where there is a lot of provocation and where I think the United States has a very inaccurate picture, but could find suddenly that we face a conflict, an armed conflict, even over Taiwan. So the situation is fraught with tremendous tensions. And as Won-Soo Kim knows very well, my basic belief is that in this period, we need to strengthen multilateralism as our fundamental principle. We need a very strong United Nations, a strong adherence to the UN Charter, a strong commitment to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and a strong commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals and to the Paris Climate Agreement and to the Convention on Biological Diversity and Protection of our Ecosystems. So my view is that because of all of these tensions, the technological, the geopolitical, and the environmental, and the social cultural, we need cooperation and multilateralism as our centerpiece of strategy. And we need to focus our public policies on achieving the goals that have been globally agreed, including the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Agreement. We know how hard this is actually to accomplish. And when we see the developments in Glasgow, Scotland this week at the COP26, we can take some heart that all of the world's governments are talking about a common approach and a common idea. But I think we should also be very concerned how ineffective this globalization is right now in actually producing meaningful results, because individual countries and especially the major powers don't commit the actions commensurate with their words. And last week I was at the G20 meeting in Italy, and I had the same impression that at the G20, there were many nice declarations, but there was very little detailed, serious policy making to achieve the declarations. So we're in a world where governments are both unable and unwilling to achieve what they've promised to achieve. They're unable to do it because the transformations are complex, long-term, and requiring a kind of planning that they're not used to. And they're unwilling to do it because the priority of the politicians in general is electoral or holding power. And the geopolitics is aimed more at confrontation than it is at mutual understanding and cooperation. And so I believe that for this reason, or these two reasons, we're not achieving what we aim to achieve. We're not achieving climate safety. We're not protecting the ecosystems. We're not addressing the inequalities in our society. And we have rising geopolitical tension and insufficient mutual understanding. And this is our major problem. So just to conclude, in my own approach to trying to contribute to solutions, what I am trying to do in my own work is to help to show what are the specific policies and pathways for success, what should be done in order to achieve the goals that we have set. And this requires a kind of policy planning framework and a serious budget framework where our government budgets are directed towards our goals and where we raise sufficient revenues from society in order to be able to pay for the public investments that are needed to achieve our goals. The big fight in the United States politically right now is that the rich don't want to pay taxes, and therefore the government does not have the revenues needed to address many of our social ills. And so our society is becoming more and more unequal. Our infrastructure is becoming more and more outdated. And yet we can't have a political consensus to actually make these transformations because the United States is too divided, too diverse, and too corrupt, actually, in our politics to make the changes that are really needed. From the point of view of Korea, I would make three quick observations, if I might. First, Korea is well served by its very strong education system and technology innovation system. And Korea should become a leader in sustainable technologies, sustainable energy systems, digital transformation, sustainable shipping and transport, and so forth, because not only will this help Korea's transformation, but it will also be the basis of Korea's competitiveness globally, because every country in the world needs a green and digital transformation. So when Korea makes it, it will also be able to export this know-how and this technology abroad. A second feature that I would emphasize is Korea does face challenges more and more of inequality within the society that I think should be addressed, and tensions within the society also. I always say Koreans work too many hours a year and need more leisure time maybe also. But Korea's success now can be invested in quality of life and in probably more government revenues needed to address the social challenges that Korea faces as well. And the third point that I would make for Korea, which I often emphasize, is how important I believe it is for Korea to cooperate with China and with Japan, and to find a new mode of cooperation that is mutually workable. I do not believe in a division of China on one side and a US, Korea, Japan alliance on the other side. I think that this is very dangerous. And I would like to see Northeast Asia in a harmonious environment with the major countries. So this is a point that I would like to emphasize. If it's possible to have closer cooperation of Korea, Japan, and China, Northeast Asia will be a great economic powerhouse, the world's technology powerhouse. And I think this would serve not only Korea, Japan, and China well, but I think it would serve the world well. The whole world would benefit from this kind of cooperation within the region. So these are just some opening thoughts, and Wansu, I'll pass it back to you.